From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider New Year's edition. We're all here with bells on. I'm your host, Mike Finger, with our usual panel of Express News sports writers, Jeff McDonald and Tom Orsborn, along with sports editor Nick Talbot. It's been a couple weeks. We took a week off. Hope everybody didn't miss us too much. Hope we didn't miss each other too much. The local Cagers went on an East Coast trip, made a quick jaunt to the Midwest, played 6 games since we last talked to you. I'm going to start with Tom Orsborn, who was on the trek, the 3-game stretch in Philadelphia and New York. This turned out kind of exactly how we anticipated in our last podcast, when I think all of us projected that the Spurs were going to go 3-3 in those 6 games, which is what they did. But Tom, what were your impressions of the details of your trip and the 6 games as a whole?
Well, a lot to unpack, Mike, from Philly and New York and Brooklyn. A lot going on there.
Yeah.
Beginning in Philly with the wild officiating in the first half. Victor Wembanyama accused of flopping, but the technical was rescinded. New York, he was spectacular.
It seems like ages ago, Tom.
I know.
This seems like ancient history. How much has changed since then? The Joel Embiid ejection. Wow, that seems like that happened during Victor's rookie year. We're covering so much ground here.
Yeah, aren't we? And in New York, he was spectacular. And then the 50-50 balls there at the end did them in. They couldn't get them. Bad luck, circumstances, whatever. But that did them in. And then Brooklyn, Wemby took that hard hit to the jaw, which he described as an uppercut, completely accidental.
Which he did not just describe it as that. That's what the broadcast showed. It was an uppercut.
Yeah, but it was completely accidental. He's looming, and the head comes up into him, and completely accidental. But yeah, a lot going on there.
And you're burying the 2 leads. It seems like, Tom. First of all, he's a Christmas hero, like in a loss, granted, but almost an unprecedented Christmas debut for Victor Wembanyama. And then he plays chess in the park.
I said he was spectacular.
Okay.
The chess, yeah, that was spectacular too. Pretty neat moment.
What the net result, Jeff, of all of this is the Spurs remain a 500 team. We're recording this on New Year's Eve. There's a chance it'll reach your ears and your digital players before the Spurs take on the Clippers on New Year's Eve. But the Spurs head into that game as a 500 team, as they've been for most of this season. And I guess it's just because we're entering this holiday, which prompts reflection among so many of us at the end of a year, the start of another one. Just where are the Spurs as they head into this next page on the calendar, Jeff?
I'll get to that, but one question for you. You know how they say Victor, he's 7'3", 7'4", 7'5". He does stuff on the basketball court that nobody else has ever done before, no one's ever seen before. Sometimes they say, on the basketball court, he changes the chessboard. Do you think it's the same like on the actual chessboard, because he's 7'5", he can make moves that nobody's ever seen before?
Maybe. Like I think he just the actual physical nature of the moves. He's coming at it from a different angle. I'm not sure he changes the game.
You can sit further away from the chessboard probably and still make those moves because of those.
Maybe if an enterprising beat writer should look into that, should track down all those people that he played chess against, and
well, I'll tell you what, the next time
oral history of people who played Victor in chess.
The next time we're given more than a 30-second heads up when Victor's going to be playing chess in the park, we'll be there.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
We'll be there. Now back to your question.
Come on. We can't have reporters complain that they weren't invited to an organic, true interaction with the public. Come on, man. You want to turn this into a media circus. have beat writers.
I mean, I've been doing this a long time, man.
Uh-huh.
And you think, I lost it. Your question earlier about where the Spurs stand going into 2025.
Reflection.
Yes. You need to go backwards. They're probably better off than anyone that we predicted before the season, right? Like, what were the final win totals we were all kind of honing in on? 30.
I think we're all in the mid-30s. All in the mid-30s, yeah.
So at exactly 500, they're on pace to win 41 games. Is that how the math works?
Yeah, I think
So they're a little ahead of the pace that we all thought they would be at.
They recorded win number 16 on March 25th last year.
I always enjoy those stats because they had like an 18-game losing streak at the beginning of last year, so it pushes all those win numbers back.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun. But yeah, they're ahead of schedule. They're right there in the play-in mix. If they had beaten Minnesota, which they lost by 2 points in that trip, they're in 8th place by themselves, or maybe tied with Golden State, which is in the thick of the play-in race. So I don't think we really thought they were going to be a play-in contender this year, but they clearly are. They clearly are. And if they were we said this before, if they were in the East, they'd be even more solidified in that mix of teams fighting for extra games. So I had a schedule so far, and we'll see if it keeps up, when the calendar flips to 2025.
If we want to get into the minutia of these 6 games that happened since our last podcast, the losses all were at least competitive for most of the time.
On that road trip, that road trip, they were 1-3, but there was a play or two away from being 2-2 or 3-1, or maybe even sweeping the thing. But their 3 losses were by a combined 10 points.
And it wasn't the way that those type of losses happened last year, or the year before, where it was like inevitable that everything was going to fall apart in the end. It seemed like the Minnesota game in particular was one of those. We've seen a few out of the Spurs this year where it looks like they're about to get run out of the building early on, and easily could have been. And this team just hangs around. And I wanted to get everybody's opinion on kind of what goes into that. To me, it's like, first of all, the NBA is that way. It's been that way the last few years. The 10-point leads can become close games. 20-point games can become close games. It happens all the time. That's just the way the NBA works. But also, I think the Chris Paul factor, just having that competent veteran point guard to keep teams focused, keep the Spurs in these games, I think that's played a huge role. I also think like the Spurs seem pretty well coached. Is that a hot take? They tend to make good in-game halftime adjustments. Like they're starting to get Victor in his spots. They're getting what they want out of their offense a lot of times. Am I making too much of that?
Could have been a better ending in Minnesota, I think. But your point is correct. Yes, they're well coached, but that shot by Jeremy there at the end was disappointing.
I mean, that's not a called play either. That's a play that I think Jeff mentioned in the 3 takeaways, which are always a highlight of my day. That like Minnesota's really good on defense, and
yes,
I don't think. Like, that's not a play where you call that for Jeremy Sohan. Jeremy, you probably don't want him taking that shot, but he probably could have made that pass that he wanted to make. It looked like to Harrison Barnes in the corner, and that would have been that would have been a great shot. If Jeremy makes that pass to Harrison in the corner, you live with that every day of the week.
Yes,
that because Harrison, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, probably would have had a decent look there if he gets that ball.
He might have been wide open, and he was
wide open
and was having a great game.
The defender sort of deked.
What Dante did was deke, and it was a pretty good defensive play. Here's the difference in that situation between last year and this year. You need you get one last shot to win or tie a game. Last year they couldn't even get the ball in bounds half the time.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
This year they at least got a look. It was
and there's 3 people all over Wemby at the end.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get the ball to Wemby there. You get.
You did. They did, and
to
he
Sohan
was stuffed.
In a situation where he can make a decision there. He obviously made the wrong one. I don't want this to be a pile on Jeremy Sohan podcast, because he continues to be one of the bright spots of this team this season. It's just probably not the shot the Spurs wanted there, but I can sort of see how it happened. He's like Dante DiVincenzo kind of beaks him there into getting him to take a shot that the Timberwolves probably wanted him to take. He takes it. It's not close. It looks bad. But that game overall is not an embarrassment for the Spurs in the way that they did a lot of good stuff again against a pretty good team.
Yeah. I haven't done all the permutations of that last play, but like, what if you have Julian Champagny in there instead of Sohan? Does that change anything? There are probably reasons you have Sohan in there instead. I mean, you were down by 2. You didn't technically need a 3.
Exactly.
So I don't know. To go back to your point, yes, they're being competently coached by Mitch Johnson, who did not enter the season thinking he'd have to competently coach anybody. I think Chris Paul makes a big difference. Every so often I click on these things for some reason, and I don't know why. But I read something today complaining about how Chris Paul's shooting is falling off in December, and in Minnesota he didn't even have a field goal. And I'm like, it'd been nice, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't. He had 14 assists.
Gotten way more big shots out of Chris Paul this year than I ever thought they would have.
Yes, and
his shooting was sort of carrying them in an unrealistic way there for a stretch when it seemed like he was making a big shot every game. That's probably not why they signed him. That was sort of gravy.
They've also gotten more big shots from other people out of Chris Paul.
Yeah,
he had 14 assists in Minnesota, and again, just having a guy on the floor that has been there and done that before is, that's the difference to me in the Spurs in the fourth quarters this year and not in the fourth quarters. They are better in those situations at home, which is to be expected. On the road, they've been a little rougher in those crunch time games, but that's kind of a next step for a team. It's like last year they couldn't beat anybody anywhere. This year they're at least taking care of those close games at home. Now it's time to learn how to take care of some of those close games on the road. It's kind of a step-by-step process.
Yeah, I think all that's fair. You can look at this most recent road trip and say they probably shouldn't have let that Philadelphia game get away, especially after Embiid gets ejected in the first half. That was a missed opportunity. The Minnesota game, probably a missed opportunity late in that. Yeah, I mean, it was winnable. They did have a chance. Victor missed a free throw at one point. Like he was just unbelievable down the stretch. Again, we're nitpicking, but that missed free throw kind of changes the ending there. There's missed opportunities, but
bounce here and there in New York, they win that one too.
But it's just so much more competent fourth quarter wise than in previous years, and this is not breaking news. We've talked about it all season long. This is what was expected. This growth, I think, even on a trip where they go 1-3, you continue to see some little bits of progress. I think some competence might be a better word there. But
it's New Year's Eve, which means tomorrow is New Year's Day. It's January. You know what that means, right? It's time to talk about the Rookie of the Year race.
Oh my goodness! Go ahead.
Where do we think Steph Castle stands in the Rookie of the Year race after this stretch? He started off so great. He had to start a lot of games because of the Spurs just injury situation, and he was kind of a hot commodity there for a while. Now has been moved back to the bench since they've gotten all healthy. Doesn't have as many opportunities to kind of play through some of those rookie struggles, and kind of wondering what we think about all that.
I read in the Express News on expressnews.com on Tom Orsborn's Blue Sky feed, where all the basketball fans are on Blue Sky now. I highly recommend it. We're all on Blue Sky. That there might be talk of Stephon Castle hitting the rookie wall, Tom. What do you think about that?
Well, the Spurs don't want to hear that.
Okay.
Clearly. I found that out. They clearly don't want to hear that.
But none of them are listening to this podcast. Wink, wink. Sorry, everybody.
Circumstances, as Jeff pointed out, and as I pointed out in the story, are working against him right now. But he's still leading the mythical. Well, it's not mythical, but he's leading the race. I know you don't want to talk about it, Mike, but I think he's still a front runner for Rookie of the Year. But
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Okay.
It's also
Who is?
pretty strong. To be fair, there aren't a lot of strong contenders now that Philadelphia's guy went down, McCain. So it's been kind of what the class is what we thought it was, right? I mean, there's a lot of good things. Stephon Castle's great, but if he wins Rookie of the Year, it's not like Wemby winning it over Holmgren.
Okay, like a lot of these times, it just goes to the rookie that averages the most points in situations like this, which right now is Jared
Williams here.
Which right now is Jared McCain, who, I mean, if he doesn't, he might not be the pick if he doesn't come back.
Well, he's out for the year.
Yeah, so he wouldn't be the pick playing 20 games or 23 games. So right now, among the rookies that are, still healthy and playing, it would be Washington's Alexander Sarr at 11.6 points per game. Well, your dark horses would be the two Memphis guys, Jalen Wells and Zach Edey, who are right behind them.
As much as I hate this whole discussion, the talking about awards at all, talking about awards in January.
You know that's why I brought it up, right?
Of course. But I'm checking the Vegas Insider, which has this and sports gambling too. We're adding sports gambling onto awards talk. Like,
you did that, buddy.
It's driving me crazy here at the end of the year because I don't want any part of this. But Tom assumed that Stephon Castle's the favorite and asked me who is the favorite. Well, according to 5 different betting sites, Zach Edey is way ahead as a betting favorite. Plus 120, plus 115, minus 115, plus 120 on FanDuel, where you have Yves Missi from New Orleans in second place, Stephon Castle in third.
I stand corrected.
But now I kind of
sort of a distant third. Alexander Sarr in fourth place. Jalen Wells, who I had mentioned Jeff the other day, just another example of Memphis finding like productive guys in the second round. Like he's been starting for them all year. He's not going to be a star, I don't think. I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year, but
Wells and Edey could definitely split that vote. You know what I mean?
The vaunted Memphis Rookie of the Year vote.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes when you have two guys, people don't know who to pick.
Okay.
And so some go one way, some go the other.
If you feel so strongly about it, then get on one of these like terrible, awful, ruining the country sports betting sites and clean up on your Stephon Castle. Because they're still listing him at 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 to win, where Zach Edey's even money. And I'll say this: if we want to have an interesting or a productive rookie conversation, I still think you look at all these guys and say that Stephon Castle, I project as the guy who's most likely to have the most productive career. I think if you redraft all of these guys, Stephon Castle is the guy that most teams want. I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year just because of what Tom wrote about in his story on expressnews.com. And what we've been saying here is he's just not going to get it's circumstances. It's, he's not going to start anymore. Zach Edey is a starter as long as he's healthy in the Grizzlies lineup. Stephon Castle's probably not going to put the stats. He's probably hitting a spot here where things are going to get a little difficult for him. But I still think the Spurs should be really, really happy with the pick they made because that's what's going to be a big part of the Spurs for a long time.
What do we think about his
finger right there? He has the best He does have the best upside when you look at it. No one has ever looked at Zach Edey and said this guy has a lot of upside. That's why he was in college for all those years because no one thought he could stretch or play defense or switch, right? And he's still going to have those issues. So he may be what he is. And Castle has all the upside in the world.
What do we think of Castle's, all that said, his minutes or lack thereof lately? I think he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter in New York. He was kind of absent down the stretch in Minnesota. It seems like it was almost the thing we made a big deal about early in the year when he was guaranteed 20-plus minutes, is he can have these stretches where he looks like a total rookie. Bunch of stuff goes wrong for him, but one of his best qualities is he sticks to it, and next thing you know, he's making plays down the stretch. He's making big shots down the stretch. Nowadays, he's getting his 7 minutes, he's making his rookie mistakes, and then he's not getting the chance to do what we all said he was so great at and bounce back and make those big plays down the stretch.
Well, could it be as simple as there's options now? I mean, the Spurs are playing at full strength. They have 15 healthy guys most nights.
They went with Trey Jones in New York against the Knicks in the fourth. He had a high 9 assists, and Mitch just felt more confident with
understandably
point guard out there. Yeah, so
a lot of times when
healthy bodies,
when Stephon Castle was out there in games, it was because the Spurs coaches, going back to Greg Popovich into the Mitch Johnson era, they all had a great deal of confidence in him and still do. It was a case of like that. Not everybody else was healthy. Like the rotation wasn't as deep as it is now. It was him or who, Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham. Now you can put in a Trey Jones who is healthy again. Just Jeremy Sohan being back again, that has that ripple down effect through the rest of the lineup, where you have more available minutes from Devin Vassell, from Kelton Johnson, all that. I think there's just you're in these close games, and you want somebody who is playing well with confidence, who has a track record there, and maybe Stephon Castle, any rookie, gets squeezed out a little bit. I think that he's going to get more opportunities the rest of the season. Again, I still think the Spurs have that pick to make over again. They take him 100 times out of 100.
Oh, no.
By the way, Jeff might have mentioned this to me this past week. Somebody mentioned to me how happy are they that that Houston made the pick they made in front of them at number 3. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Like, I remember when I got all kinds of grief for questioning Reed Shepherd on this podcast, like last summer.
Yeah, I mean,
and he still might be fine. He's still a good shooter. Like the skills are still there.
Back in the summer,
has not had a good rookie season.
Back in the summer after the draft, and I heard this from one person, so it's just one person's opinion or thought, or, but that person said if they had been able to choose between Reed Shepherd and Steph Castle, they might have taken Reed Shepherd. So Houston taking that might have saved them from themselves, and just take the guy, took the choice off the table. That said, who was on top of all this was this will be something we should mention on this podcast anyway, our friend Jonathan Fagan, who is retired now.
Oh, shout out to Jonathan Fagan. One of the best of the greatest of all, one of the greatest of all time. Good guy.
He's one of the GOATs. Houston Chronicle beat writer, covered the Rockets since since they were in San Diego, I think. I was there for the preseason, and Reed Shepherd was kind of the trendy rookie of the year pick in the preseason. And he was like, no, Reed Shepherd's not going to play nearly enough to win rookie of the year. Like he's not. They have so many guards on this roster already ahead of them. He's not going to play nearly enough. And he was really the only guy saying that. And, it's turned out to be kind of correct. Not kind of correct, definitely correct. So,
it hasn't just been that's true. And again, congrats to Jonathan. Great career. Just the consummate professional beat guy. One of the few, Jeff does this exercise every year where he goes through the whole league in terms of the beat guys. And Jonathan was one of the few who had you beat in terms of covering the same team for the same outlet longer than you did, or longer than you have. But congrats to him.
I think we're down to one. I think I'm number. Not that I'm bragging about it. Yeah,
is it just Ira?
Ira Winderman of the South Sun Sentinel down in Florida, covering the Heat.
Yeah, you're almost there. You're almost the dean.
Yeah.
I should point out though that it's not just a matter of opportunity for young Mr. Shepherd. Like he hasn't done great in the minutes that he's gotten, and he plays in most games, just not a lot of minutes because he hasn't forced the issue. He's not making his shots. He's not doing what I think people expected him to do. He still could be a productive pick, and he could, it could be a situation where if he got to play more, he'd play better. But the Spurs are pretty happy with who they have, I think.
I think that's definitely fair to say. I mean, not fair to say.
They're
totally accurate.
Very happy with him. Yeah,
and I think you're right. They might end up. there's a good chance they've ended up with the best player in this class. I mean, it's hard to say after 1 year, but we have seen what Steph Castle can do as a rookie, all the different ways he can contribute, not just scoring at all. And you have to believe, I mean, you don't have to believe, but generally, his shooting's going to get better. I'm not an expert, but I don't see anything in his mechanics that is just terrible. Yeah. It's not like where you saw Sohan shoot as a rookie and went, yeesh, I don't know if that's even fixable. Every shot Stephon takes, like, to me, looks confident and looks like it's going in and just doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah, I think maybe if he could just get that little mid-range down, that would help. I don't really like the thing where he just does the Keldon Johnson barrel into, like, the slow step thing was working for him for a while, but now he's doing it in traffic and just kind of barreling. I mean, it's rookie stuff, just learning what you can get away with and can't get away with, and learning how teams adjust to you. It's all that stuff, and but we've seen what he can do defensively. I've always been impressed with his, like, floor presence and his court vision. Like, that was one of the first things I noticed was him making passes. They're not these spectacular passes where he's just threading the needle to guys, but it's like, I wouldn't even have thought to make that pass to the skip guy. And that's where Steph goes with it. And it's the right pass. So all that stuff is just really encouraging. His numbers don't matter that much when you're judging his rookie year. I mean, it probably will, the rookie of the year voters, but to the Spurs, it's not about the numbers. It's about watching him on the floor, how he progresses, what he's learning, how quickly he's learning it, how quickly he's, adjusting to the NBA. So all signs are good for him so far, even though he's a little bit of a lull right now.
And I think part of why struggles can be sort of expected is it's not that he's reckless. Sometimes he is, but I was reading something, and it's been months and months. And I don't remember who it was. It was a smart basketball person sort of talking about why Trey Jones has limitations as a point guard, even though his assist to turnover ratio has always been, like, super good, right? Like, he hardly ever turns the ball over, has good assist numbers. But you almost want, from a Chris Paul type point guard, from a Stephon Castle, you want some turnover risk, because if you're not taking the risk, if you're not making difficult passes, like, that limits your ceiling. And I think that whereas Trey Jones has that sort of high floor, low ceiling deal where he's just making the smart, obvious play over and over again, which is valuable as a backup point guard. Like, Stephon, as Jeff was pointing out, makes that pass that a lot of people don't see, and that's going to lead to him looking foolish sometimes, or it's going to make you, like, slap your head, like, what the hell was he doing there? But I think that's because he's going for that high ceiling type of play sometimes. And when you have a player like that, I think part of working through their stuff early in their career is just figuring out how much they can push it. And sometimes he just runs into traffic and it looks terrible. But I think that's because he's developing that elite star quality playmaking repertoire. That's going to pay off down the line.
There's a fine line between what an amazing pass and, like, what was he even thinking?
Yeah.
And
there was the Minnesota game where Chris Paul led Jeremy Sohan on a pick and roll pass.
That was
like close to being like, oh, what a terrible pass. And it was just perfect. Jeremy made a great catch.
I know what you mean.
Was that in Minnesota?
I think that was in Minnesota. There was the moment in Brooklyn where Chris made a pass to where Jeremy should have been on the roll, and the ball basically rolled out of bounds and into the third row.
Well, see, put those two together.
And Chris got on Jeremy's behind.
Yeah.
Sean Elliott pointed this out on the broadcast. Chris was just on his butt. And basically, Sean's point was if Chris Paul throws a ball somewhere and it goes out of bounds, it's because you weren't where you were supposed to be. Like, he's throwing the ball where you're supposed to be. And there was a play maybe 5 minutes later, same thing. and Jeremy was right there for the catch and the dunk. So
They might have both been in Brooklyn, but those two together kind of illustrate the point that I'm trying to make. Is sometimes you make passes that have a danger, a chance of looking terrible because there's that upside of this just becomes an unguardable assist.
But it's funny. It's funny when you're Chris Paul and you do that. It's like, oh, the other guy screwed up.
Right.
But if you're Steph Castle and do that, sometimes it's like everyone thinks you screwed up.
This is my point. And Trey Jones doesn't do those. And there's a place for that Trey Jones player, just the reliable, high percentage pass, high percentage play over and over again type of guy. Like that's a great guy to have on your bench. It's probably not the guy that maximizes the effectiveness of your offense if you're never kind of pushing it. So it's good to have they have three guys who I think fit pretty well together this season and giving you a wide variety of looks at the point guard position. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward.
The best example of the high risk, high reward actually maybe in the other league these days in Caitlin Clark. If you want an example of high risk, high reward.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of who she's playing with. Like, so if she doesn't have the right teammates, like it doesn't look as great. But no, that's good. Looking forward, we'll close like we often do, and your Spurs will include the Clippers game on New Year's Eve in this projection, even though some of you might not hear this podcast until after that game's over with. But you got the Clippers at home on New Year's Eve. You got two games against the Denver Nuggets, one on the road, one at home on back-to-back nights. Then at Chicago next Monday, where it will be frigid, Jeff. I don't know if you've taken a look at the forecast, but I think the high temperatures will be around 19, 20 degrees. So
Fahrenheit?
So bulk up your layers in your bag for that trip. That's 4 games. 2 at home, 2 on the road. None of them slam dunk easy victories, I don't think. None of them unwinnable, although winning at the Nuggets might be tough. I'm going to go continue the theme and go 2-2 again.
Yeah, 2-2. Yep. That's what they are right now.
That's what the record says they are.
This is going to shock you. I'm going to go a little more pessimistic than that and say 1-3.
Okay.
And it's sort of like it's like buckle up, everybody, because it's going to get a little rough. And one reason I'd be concerned is the road games are piling up. Like the Spurs went into that last 4-game trip, they had completed fewer road games than anyone in the league, which means they're all coming now.
Yeah.
And those road trips on a team like that can just wear you out. And even when you have some home games sprinkled in, like they had a 4-game trip, came home yesterday, now they play the Clippers tonight. That game almost feels like a road game. I mean, yes, you have the home crowd behind you, but you're not at home, in your bed very long. You're not really acclimated to home. You're not settled in. You're basically making one stop and then you're back on the road to Denver. Same thing. You come home the next night from Denver and play your other home game in that stretch. The next night where you're not really home, you're just flying in and flying out, and then you're going back on the road. And I know we're not predicting that, but after the Chicago and Milwaukee games, they go to LA for 2 games against the Lakers. So it's a bunch of road games where they're only home for a night, and I just think that wears on teams after a while. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a younger team can handle it better, just fresher legs. But then I wonder if there's a mental component to it that a more veteran team might be able to kind of power through more. And maybe that'll be something worth watching during that stretch.
That's why I think to get to that 2-2 this week, the one that they have to win is that at Chicago against a not great team. But that's one, like you said, that could slip away, and that takes you to 1-3 or 0-4. But I think that's the one that you, of these next 4, that you think you
they did beat Denver last year when the Spurs were a 22-win team. And
that's true.
You got them 2 nights in a row. Like maybe you can pull one of those off. I don't know.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised at them winning any one of the. Well, I would be surprised if they win at Denver. I think you beat either the Clippers at home or the Nuggets at home, and then you got to steal that one against the Bulls.
How about you send basically your G League skeleton squad to Denver and just take that L, let everybody else stay home, and then play that.
Yeah. That'd be a very
Okay.
Spursian thing to do.
They did that late last year and almost won.
Yeah.
With Wemby doing what Wemby does.
I'm not going to do the very lame, hacky, podcasty thing where I ask the panelists for New Year's resolutions. But Tom, you have anything that you're looking forward to in the year 2025?
If I'm ever fortunate enough to go back to Madison Square Garden, I'm going to know that security will kick you out 30 minutes after availability. And there's no arguing with them.
I heard
They
that
say,
story.
They
I
say,
heard that
get out of
story
here.
from your compatriot on that trip, Michael C. Wright, a
Yes.
good friend of the podcast. You can start an online petition to get him on this podcast if you're listening here. He resists at every invitation. When I heard that story, and I've been to Madison Square Garden, I think 7 years in a row before this one. I missed it, and you guys were complaining about just the shoddy treatment, getting kicked out, and that just made me miss the trip even more. There's something about Madison Square Garden where everyone being angry with you, yelling at you. It just makes me love that. I love that place so much.
They're really just mad that you're there in the first place.
Exactly. And when I heard that
you're getting in there,
yelled at and kicked out, I was, I wish that could have been me. I miss that place so much.
most of the time you're getting yelled at for trying to get in. Hey, I'm standing here. And now they're telling Tom and Michael Wright, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
I love that place. I love that. Jeff,
We're
anything
trying to get home to our families here.
Jeff, anything you're looking forward to in the year 2025?
Health, peace, and prosperity for all my friends and loved ones, and the opposite of that for everyone I hate.
That sounds good. Nicholas?
I am looking for Wemby to get into more awards talk so we can irritate Mike Finger some more with awards.
Oh, that'll be amazing.
Sounds good. All that to look forward to.
Yay. Third place for MVP, you know, just the numbers, just to make it a talking point to annoy Mike. I think that's really what I'm looking forward to.
All that to look forward to when we see you again in the next year. Hope you all join us. Love having you around. Thanks to everybody for listening. Another great year ahead. Until next time, take care of each other and keep it real.